Hey guys, stay-patient here and welcome to this week's trophy update. Now I just want to apologise for the fact that I'm a bit behind with your comments at the moment. I might have caught up by the time you're watching this, so it might be an irrelevant point. But there was a couple comments yesterday that I have taken on board, I have been listening to, I take feedback very seriously. There were a couple of you that mentioned that sometimes I can be a bit repetitive and that's what leads to some of my videos being particularly long. Now that's a fair enough comment. Obviously some of my content is, planned, some of it's scripted, but some videos like the weekly trophy update that we're doing today, and if we're reviewing a sale on the store, or like yesterday we did a review of the PS Plus freebies, usually what I do is kind of do the research that's required to get the information I need, but then kind of approach it in a very informal way. I just kind of start the video and record it as if I was chatting with some mates, So some people have actually messaged and said they enjoy that style because it feels like they're sat with a buddy just talking about games. But at the same time, I don't want to be repeating myself if that's what's happening. So I'm going to try and find a happy medium, I'm still going to approach these videos, informally so that they feel nice and relaxed and casual. But I will try and, because I've got a bit more time free now, I've kind of maneuvered things to free up some time for YouTube. I will do a bit more research and kind of have a think about exactly what it is I want to speak about. Now, you also mentioned in those same comments about my repetition when it comes to the trophy service. That was really just the 2 videos this week. That's not going to continue, don't worry. And some people have asked why I've taken those 2 videos down. It wasn't anything to do with feedback or anything like that. They were always going to be taken down because that's not what I want the channel to be focused on. So the first one was the recruitment video. Obviously, I had to take that down, otherwise I'd be receiving applications for months on end. And the second one, obviously, I just used to update everyone who had applied rather than email them individually. But while I was there, I did want to sort of just address some of the negativity from the first video, not really to back up the trophy service itself, but to stop you guys getting a bad impression of me. Because a lot of people were calling me out on high prices and things like that. Many of you were backing me up on the fact that, games take a long time to complete, which is fair. But I really don't want anyone getting the impression that I'm out to take advantage of people or anything like that. Obviously I spend a lot of time on the YouTube channel, which doesn't really make me any money, and that's the whole point of that, is to help out trophy hunters. And quite a lot of the time it actually takes work away from my trophy service, because there are some guides I put up that literally as soon as I put the guide up, orders for that game just disappear. There might have been a regular order that people were putting in through the trophy service, but I'd much rather help people earn their own trophies. That's what I'm all about. So off the back of that, I have been checking the prices and kind of adjusting things where needed. The reason I mention that, though, is because it got me thinking about an interesting subject that kind of affects gamers and trophy hunters in different ways. And that is the idea of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I'm not diagnosed with OCD, I don't have it as such, but there are things that kind of make me think I've got it, at least to a certain degree, and I think a lot of people do have at least a small degree of OCD. One of the things that makes me think I may have OCD, at least a little bit, is the way I price games on the trophy service. There are kind of brackets, and everything has to fit into those brackets. So just as an example, between £100 and £200, I only ever price them as 100, 120, 150, 180 and 200. My mind wouldn't let me price something at like 135 quid or something, because then I'd start overthinking it, and every game I just wouldn't know what price to give it. So if something's worth over 120, then it makes it 150. I do obviously give people better prices on those types of games when they message me. I'm perfectly happy doing that. My mind lets me do that, fine. But when it comes to actually having them listed on the site, they all need to kind of line up, otherwise I just feel off balance, This kind of reminds me of a friend of mine who can't have his stereo volume at an odd number. So if you in a car with him and you put the stereo to 11, he can't handle it. It has to be 10 or 12, And it just got me thinking about the subject of OCD, because I would really love to hear back from any of you guys who might actually be diagnosed with it, because I think it'd be really interesting to hear how it affects you as a trophy hunter and as a gamer. I think it could possibly be a nightmare. If you've got severe OCD, it might be terrible. Maybe you literally can't game because of it. But, a lot of people complain or have a go at people who only play games that they know they can earn all the trophies for. But quite often I think to myself, well, you know what? There's probably some level of OCD in action there being sort of implemented in their brain. So let me know if any of you do have actual OCD. It would be really interesting to hear, your thoughts on it, how it affects you as a gamer. So guys, if you stick around till the end of the video, I am going to run something by you. I'd love to get your opinions on some ideas I've had for Patreon rewards. And I'm going to do a separate video, once I've decided what rewards to offer. I'm going to do a video explaining them all and everything. But with you guys probably being the majority of my really regular viewers, I'd love to hear your opinion on some of the ideas I've had. That would be really handy. Anyway, let's get into the games, guys. So there's a few that I do want to mention. I've got my iPad next to me here with some notes. The first one was Star Wall. Now, I forget your name, but one of you mentioned, gave us details of how the Star Wall trophies are working. This is one of the freebies for February. And it was the only other one to have a platinum besides Little Big Planet. Now, my assumption that I made ended up being correct, according to, whoever it was that commented. I apologise that I've forgotten your name. Basically, if you're in Europe, then you can download the PS4 and PS3 version, and they have separate platinums, so you can earn 2. If you're in the US, unfortunately, most of you are in America, I think, you can still download the PS4 and PS3 versions, but they share a trophy list. So you're only going to be able to get 1 platinum from the freebies. But like I mentioned, if you did want to have access to all 3 platinums, you would need to have a US account that's signed up to PlayStation Plus and a European account that's signed up to PS Plus, or you'd have to buy the version from the country you don't live in, if that makes sense. So I hope that clears that up anyway. Thanks very much to the guy who gave us that information. Now, we also mentioned a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, about Operation 7 Revolution. Again, I'm really sorry, I forget your name, but one of you guys did PSN, message me on PSN and let me know that there is one glitch trophy and that the game is only available in the East, in some of the Asian countries. Apparently, that same guys let me know that they have now fixed that glitch. So if you do have multiple accounts and you're able to get access to Operation 7, you will now be able to plat it. And it does look like a very easy plat. Might take a bit of time, but you can boost it by setting up private matches if you like. Another key update from one of you guys is a very interesting one, actually. It's in regards to Ark Survival Evolved. Now, this is a game that looks really cool, and I would like to play it at some point. But apparently it's possibly the first game on console ever to have console commands. Now, don't get the term console confused with the fact, the game's consoles themselves. Console commands are usually something that you can do on PC, which allows you to access almost like the coding of the game to change things and give yourself access to stuff. But in this case, on Ark Survival Evolved on PS4, you can actually access the console commands and give yourself the trophies, which is amazing. That's insane. I say amazing, it's not necessarily a good thing, but I think some of the trophies are glitched, possibly. In fact, I think all of them are glitched to a certain degree. So having this opportunity is really helpful. It might be that they've added it just because of the glitches, and maybe once they fix the glitches, they'll take the console commands away. So if you're looking to earn a really easy, quick platinum by using the console commands, then you should probably jump on now just in case they do remove the opportunity to do so. Now, there's actually also one other game that I was planning on talking about last week, but I forgot about, unfortunately. And that is a game that you've probably seen loads of videos about on YouTube. In fact, let's check out a trailer for it. Now, this is Life of Black Tiger. You've probably seen videos all over the place for this because almost every big gaming YouTuber has been playing it with the tagline in the title, referring to it as the worst game ever or the worst PS4 game. And it really does look like the worst PS4 game so far. This was spoken about on Eurogamer. They sort of labelled it as the worst one on PS4. And as you can see, how is this even allowed to be released? It's hilarious, but I would like to play it just for the sake of just humour, really, just seeing why it even exists. Like I say, it's called Life of Black Tiger, and I don't know. I don't know what the developers are thinking. I think sometimes, devs put out games that are deliberately bad because they get more press. So really good games get a lot of press. Games with a high marketing budget get a lot of press. But also terrible games get a lot. Now, games that are just about okay, no one really hears about them. Games that are very average, like a 5 out of 10 from review scores, they don't really, no one cares about them. They're in this kind of no man's land. But games that get sort of 8, 9, 10, or even 1 or 2, You know, most of us probably know more about the games that get a 1 or 2 out of 10 than we do the games that get a 4 or 5 or maybe 6, you know? Now, let's just quickly take a look at it on PlayStationTrophies.org, because interestingly enough, it doesn't have a platinum, but it is a super easy 100%. So some of you might actually end up playing this just for the trophies and out of curiosity, really. Like I say, sometimes it's kind of fun playing terrible, really outright terrible games just for the novelty. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, it's only got 1 vote in each thread. What was the time again? Let's see, I got the 100% in less than 3 hours. So yeah, it's super quick. I mean, you don't get many trophies, so it's not worth it. I won't be, well, I don't think I'll be doing it unless I decide to stream it or something. But I thought it was interesting just because it looks so terrible. Some of you might be curious to test it out. Anyway, let's sort of crack on with this week's games. We got up to around here last week, spoke about Sniper Elite. We didn't cover Earthlock Festival of Magic, so let's check out a quick trailer for that one now. Okay, so we have 2 here. We'll go with the shorter one. I think it's a bit older. Yeah, they're probably both similar actually. But this looks like a kind of... it actually looks like a PS3 game. I don't know if any of you guys have played the Ben 10 like platformers, but it has a kind of similar visual style to some of those old PS3 like sort of kids platformer games, although it's more of a sort of RPG, not in its truest sense, I don't think, but there is leveling and there is like weapons you can equip and stuff. There is when I first watched it, actually, I couldn't really tell what the combat was going to be like, but it does turn out, as you can see here, it is turn-based, so it is, I guess it is, you know, proper RPG. But like I say, graphically, it's kind of nice graphics, but it does look pretty old school. And the kind of camera angle, the top-down camera angle, just made me think of those terrible Ben 10 games last generation. Some of them were easy platinums, but I think I played one of them. And it did go fairly quick, but it felt like forever because it was so tedious. And the controls are terrible, and I just swore I'd never play one again. But this looks okay. I mean, sometimes it's quite nice playing an RPG that isn't from an existing franchise, you know? We're all used to, you know, Final Fantasy games and things like that. But sometimes, you know, having a brand new IP, I mean, I don't know if it's brand new, but one that's new to you at least, one that you haven't played before, or one that's new to the console that you're playing on, that's quite a nice feeling, because they might have new features that you've never experienced in an RPG before. That was a bit like Ni no Kuni for me last generation. You know, that was quite different to anything I'd played, and it was a huge amount of fun. It is worth mentioning, though, that on PlayStationTrophies.org it's been pointed out that there is an unattainable trophy at the moment, but it is being fixed. So if you do like the look of this, then make sure to wait for the fix. After the 50 goats defeated, instead of unlocking Spiritualist of the Sands, you unlock the trophy Lango Plantmaster. Once you complete the requirements for Lango Plantmaster, you unlock no trophies, meaning Spiritualist of the Sands is currently unobtainable. But the developers have said, sorry for the late reply, thank you for reporting the bug. This is a known issue and we're currently working on a fix. After the fix is in place, you should only need to kill 1 more ghost in order to unlock your trophy. So it sounds like you might be able to play it now and get, you know, finish all the trophies, basically do the requirements, but then once the patch is released, just kill 1 more ghost or whatever, and it will pop, you know, retroactively. So hopefully that's going to work out nicely. So back to our list here. The next interesting game, I think, is Limelight. I actually had one of you guys message me, I think it was on PSN, asking if I was planning on doing a guide for it, and I'd literally never heard of it. So I checked it out, and it looked kind of intriguing. Here's the trailer here. Let's have a look at this. It's only a minute long. This is basically a puzzle game where you're making your way through kind of mazes and stuff, and you're just a light. What if we reduce a video game to its simplest form? Yeah, it's kind of cool. You know, you're this light on a line, and you have to choose which direction to go in to interact with kind of bridges and link up sections of the I guess the grid or whatever you want to call it, and avoid things like here. And it looks like, I mean, trophy-wise, I'm assuming that if there's ever a guide made, like a comprehensive step-by-step guide, if someone masters this game and gets really good at it, then they'll be able to show you exactly what to do. Because as you can see, some of them are probably really quite tricky to figure out on your own. So I'm not sure if this one is out yet. I don't think it is. Oh no, there are some people playing it, but obviously it might be a while before someone makes a guide, because I don't think it's going to be the kind of game that loads of people are going to go out and play. And out of those people, it might be a really tough platinum. So there might only be a few people who are able to figure it out. Only one person's platted it so far. And if that's the case, then there's much less chance that one of those people happens to be someone who is a guide writer or a guide creator. I mean, I'd love to put a guide together for myself, but I don't know whether I'd be able to manage it. So it would be a bit pointless me spending hours and hours with a game trying to figure it all out. So I can make a guide and then realizing that it's beyond me and having sort of wasted all that time. But obviously, if there is a text guide put up, I will make a video guide for them. But it does look kind of cool, and might be worth checking out for you hardcore puzzle fans who are really up for a challenge. So that was Limelight. Blue Collar Astronaut. This looks kind of interesting. So this is another sort of indie style game. There's a lot of indie games coming out at the moment because I guess they take advantage of the fact that there's not many AAA games at this time of year. But this looks kind of tricky. I'm not showing you this because I think it's going to be an easy platinum. You have to be very precise with your movements. The control looks quite fiddly. This looks quite simple to begin with, but it gets more and more complex. One thing I do like, though, is the sense of humour, which comes into play in a minute. In fact, there are some quotes which are obviously written by the developers themselves. It looks like a drift game, doesn't it, in space? There's these quotes that they've obviously written themselves for the sake of humour, but they kind of go through them very quickly. So we're going to actually pause them for each one, because some of them are really quite funny. But as you can see, it's basically like a takeoff and land style game, but with all the kind of obstacles to avoid and stuff. And it looks as though you need to be very precise and deliberate with the controls, because everything you do has a lasting effect, as they do in games like this. Okay, so yeah, here we go. It says, earns its place among the games I've been paid to review. And paid is spelled incorrectly as well. I wonder if that was deliberate. Fits the technical definition of a game. I gave it 10 Schrödinger cats. Why do you need a quote? I give this game 4 stars out of the number of stars in the universe. A horrifying vision of things to come. What was that? I stole this joke from Zeboid Games. I don't actually remember what they were, but get away from me, random stranger. Oh, what am I doing? Sorry, guys. All this pausing and stuff. Yeah, it just looks. I think sometimes when they display a sense of humor along those lines, it reflects a nice, a nice approach to their game design, a nice attitude, and sometimes it means that their game might be worth checking out because, I don't know, maybe if they're funny people, the game will be fun, but it doesn't always work out that way. Knee Deep. This is a kind of episodic series. I think there were 3 acts that released on Steam, and I believe they were separate. They kind of released over a period of time, like any episodic game. But it's been released on PS4 as a full collection. Now, 13% of people have already platted it, and it looks as though it's going to be an easy one. So let's check out a trailer for this one as well. Now, this is kind of an investigative game. Is that the right word? I think you're trying to figure out what's happened. I haven't looked into the story because if I play it, I don't really want to know exactly what it's about. Dead men walking, nothing's what it seems in the swamps of Cyprus. Knee. From a fallen wonderland to a tragic festival. I apologise that there's no sound. Everybody's banking on a big boom to save the day. None of this really makes a lot of sense. Find out what happens in the grand finale of Knee Deep. I guess this is... I'm going to read this because Jim Sterling, he's quite a big YouTuber, isn't he? Knee Deep is surprisingly absorbing. Its cast of eccentric characters and shady narrative lending a pleasant Twin Peaks vibe to the whole affair. That's Jim Sterling. I've only really sort of stumbled across his videos quite recently. He was actually interviewed by Colin Moriarty on Kind of Funny Games, which was interesting. The noir-style storyline is paired with an awesome shadow-heavy aesthetic. So yeah, as you can see, there's not really any reaction-based gameplay as such. It's all positively vibrant and full of life. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these. Anyone listening to this and not watching, it might be a bit out of context. But there might be some mini games like that, sort of whack-a-mole. Act 2's another top-notch. What I was going to say is that this, with it being a episodic game, some of these or some of the sort of lines of dialogue at the start, the text, what are they called? Just the description of the game, it didn't make a lot of sense to us because it's advertising Act 3, so it's probably assuming you've got knowledge of the first two. Another top-notch addition to this excellently written noir adventure. Yeah, anyway, let's carry on. It does look interesting though, and like I say, it looks like not exactly a point-and-click adventure, but it's something where you're just interacting with items and people and making choices, so it probably will be another game that is very easy once a guide releases. For interactive storytelling that's unsettling, sinister, and surreal, it's hard to do better than Knee Deep. It's actually starting to sound really good. I hadn't read all of these comments when I watched it the first time through, but it's getting a lot of positive feedback, so this could end up being really cool. Maybe one of those games that you want to play legit and not necessarily just follow a guide for. It did look at the end there like there might be some actual gameplay rather than just point-and-click exercises. So you can see here, it's been out for a while on PC since March 2016. I think that looks kind of cool. Trophy-wise, I don't think we're going to be able to tell much about it. I did have a quick look to see if there were any walkthroughs from the PC version, but I don't think there's going to be anything that includes all of the achievements because they don't really seem to care much about them over there. But I can see this probably being relatively simple. Okay, what's up next? Where do we get to? Knee Deep, yeah. Toy Odyssey. Another trailer we're going to check out. Okay, so we've got an Xbox trailer here. Sorry to be a traitor, guys. Pardon me. Sometimes the sound in these trailers is important. So if it is, if there's a game that appeals to you, then it's probably worth checking out the trailer in your own time as well. I just want to share them with you to give you enough to go on so that you can figure out if you do want to look into the game any further. And I am trying to include a few more trailers just to make the videos a bit more interesting. This is typical, they've got all this like action, sequences, and then it jumps to the actual game itself and it's a 2D platformer. But I don't know, this one, it kind of reminds me of the game we looked at last week. I've forgotten what it was called. Subterrane, that was it. Subterrane, that was that sort of top-down twin-stick shooter that was also a survival game. I think it was roguelike, permadeath, and you had to build up your base and everything, because it mentioned something here about building your base so that it can be protected. Over 300 enemies. Is that total enemies or different types? Anyway, this is procedurally generated, and you do need to, or you do kind of set up a base of sorts and try and defend it from enemies, and then kind of head out into the world, gather resources and allies and stuff. There you go. And so it looked kind of like a 2D version of a game like Subterrane. So I know there will be some of you. I know Lucas, one of our subscribers, he's very into his survival games. So that will probably be one for you, buddy. Pardon me. So again, there's not really anything to go on trophy-wise. There's a lot of games this week that haven't had their trophies, haven't been released yet, or haven't had people playing them, but the trophies have been added. On that note, actually, there is a game that we looked at a few weeks ago, Birthday's the Beginning. Remember we mentioned that it was like an Eastern release, and that the Western release was going to come out several months after. Well, I think that's to do with a delay, and I'm not sure if all the versions have been delayed or it has maybe released in Japan or something. But this one has now had a second list added, which obviously refers to, I guess, the US and the European version, or, the non-Japanese version, or whatever the case may be. This is by the guy that made Harvest Moon, Yasuhiro Wada, I think it is. The Harvest Moon games were received really well, so it might actually be better than it looks. It looks kind of interesting. We looked at it a few weeks ago, watched the trailer and everything, but the trophies have been added and it's been delayed till May. So it's literally at least 3 months to go before we can play this. So this is a great example of them adding trophies far too early, if you ask me. Now, Typo Man, this looks really cool. Now, I stumbled across this a while ago, and I'd forgotten all about it. But as soon as I started watching the trailer, it reminded me. And it looks really interesting. Basically, you play as a stack of letters and you interact with other letters to create words and basically allow you to progress through the level. Now, if they use this in interesting ways, it could be really intriguing and really sort of fun to play. But if it's overly simple, if it's like, oh, there's a word, you need to switch it around just to make another word and then you can carry on, then it might be a bit boring. But it looks like a good idea, at least. I apologise that there's not a lot of information I can give you on trophies from the games we're discussing today. But, there are a lot of fairly interesting indie games that you might not have come across otherwise. So in time, they will be released and we'll have, that's quite cool. They will be released and we'll have a bit of feedback to go on and we'll be able to kind of actually talk about them from a trophy standpoint. But as you can see, every word you interact with, you can kind of turn some words into other words to create things. You can, create a word to make something happen and then move one of the letters to stop, like with the tilt earlier. You'd create the word tilt and it would turn a platform and then just move the T out the way to stop happening. I'm intrigued at least by this. It's an interesting idea. I've never seen anything like this done. This is a boss. Hate boss. I'm going to wait. I mean, I'm not sure if this is related to Limbo in any way, but I haven't actually looked at who develops it. But it does have a similar kind of vibe to Limbo, and I think the suggested video, or at least earlier on, the suggested video was the Limbo trailer. So I might have a look actually and check to see who makes it, because the guy who made Limbo that was really cool. That was a fun game. Let's have a look. Does it have it here? We haven't clicked on the game yet, have we? Unfortunately not. Here we are though. Developer and publisher Brainseed Factory, which means it is an actual, indie game. Sorry, forgetting the word for it for a minute. As you can see, sometimes critics' reactions to games are very different to the reaction from the community. And to be honest, I trust the reaction from the community a lot more, because critics look at things that gamers might not actually care about. Sometimes I see people mark games down because they're too similar to other games, but if I've never played those other games, then it's fine. Like I remember when they were looking at Star Wars The Old Republic on PC. Now, I don't game on PC, but if it came out on PS4, I'd be all over it, So a lot of them gave it kind of 7 out of 10 or maybe lower, because they said it's a great game, but it just does what every other MMO's done before it. Well, in my eyes, I'm thinking to myself, well, I've never really played a PC MMO, so if I was going to play one, if this is as good as the other ones, then why shouldn't it score as much, I do understand the idea that games need to be unique and push things forward, but you need to really look into reviews, not just look at the score or anything like that. You have to read them and find out why they might be marked down. Because look at this, it gets a 9 out of 10 on Steam because people love it. It gets a 57% average on Metacritic, and Destructoid here 3.5 out of 10. I thought that was out of 5. That's insane. So it's getting terrible reviews from critics, but it's getting really well received. And that's probably because it's a cool idea. Maybe the reviewers are like, oh, it's a nice idea, but they haven't implemented it in the right way. But then gamers are just like, I love it. It's a really cool, interesting little idea that they've come up with. So I don't know. It's very difficult to kind of gauge whether you're going to enjoy a game or not. Sometimes it's worth just trying them and diving in and giving it a shot, I suppose. Collect all quotations. Crafting words, I guess, is just a case of playing through the game. Wear a fancy hat. That might be missable, I suppose. Maybe you just come across the word that, like they did in the trailer, and just move the T. Beat the word without using the word scrambler. Maybe that's like a hint system or a kind of solution button that you can use if you can't figure out a puzzle. Oh, start over and don't die ever. okay, too hard, don't die more than 5 times. That's cool. Yeah, so they've kind of listened to the fact that people hate trophies where you can't die at all, and they've given us a bit of leeway on that. So you have to play the game through without dying more than 5 times, finish the different chapters and a mini game, craft an evil word in the final boss fight, craft a target for the shoot machine. To be honest, guys, this looks... Oh, escape the fire without getting burnt in your first attempt. I mean, depending on what that is, it might be tricky. But I think this is the kind of game, it looks as though you might need to play it twice, because it says start over and don't die ever. Okay, too hard, don't die more than 5 times. So I'm guessing you need to complete it once and then play it again and not die more than 5 times on your second playthrough. And most of these trophies look like ones that would be a lot easier on your second playthrough. So things like escape the fire while being poisoned, escape it without getting burnt on your first attempt. Obviously, when you first get there, you're not going to know what's needed, so you're going to get burnt probably. But if you can go back and play it again, obviously, then if you're going to be doing that anyway, it's going to be a lot easier to be able to do these trophies because you're going to know what's required. So this actually looks like quite an easy plat, hopefully, guys. Obviously, famous last words and all that, I might be totally wrong. But it looks cool, it looks good, and I'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Super Gun World 2, we're not going to watch a trailer for this, but basically, I watched it earlier. It's like a 2D platformer. I think it's got a kind of overworld as well, a bit like the old Final Fantasy games. It's got RPG elements, so although it's a platformer, basically a side-scrolling shooter, that's what it is. It looks very basic, very kind of generic, really, like a lot of other games of that type. I think I remember having some kind of RPG elements, like I mentioned, but the thing that makes it stand out, which I don't know if it's going to really add any more enjoyment to the game, but the kind of the unique factor about it, the novelty about it, is the fact that guns grow on trees. So Super Gun World 2, I've never played the first one, but yeah, guns grow on trees, and you can plant trees to create guns and things like that. Now, it doesn't look very kind of like fascinating. I mean, you've got shots in the trailer of trees popping out of the ground, and then you just grab a gun off it and carry on shooting. But they're obviously trying to do something slightly different, but it didn't really grab me, that one. And without it being out yet, it's very difficult to gauge what the trophies are going to be like. So Many Me, this is another one that you can check out the trailer for in your own time if you like. There are a lot of games that involve, starting off as just one of whatever you are, and then going around the level and collecting others. A bit like, what was it? Super Exploding Zoo. But this is a 2D game, 2D platformer. But then as you're, if you're trying to reach a higher ledge, you'll jump and then turn one of your knees, as it were, into like a little wall you can bounce off. And you could basically, as you run through the level, you're collecting different versions of yourself, and then you're using them to create things that will allow you to move forward. So I don't know, it might be okay, but it's one of those kind of, I don't know if it's a mobile crossover, like port from a mobile game, but it looks like it is. It's one of those games that looks very much like it's what you might play on a mobile, and then they just chuck it on PS4, and people just kind of ignore it for the most part. But it could be fun, who knows. Neo's out, or Nio, however you pronounce it. Or not out, it's out, I think, in a few days, maybe Tuesday, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure. But this is, it's not From Software, it's Team Ninja. Yeah. I believe these were the guys that did like the Ninja Gaiden games and stuff like that, weren't they? This is going to be another tough platinum. I won't be playing it myself, but it certainly looks like one that's probably going to be tricky. It's kind of one of those games that isn't difficult because of the trophies necessarily, but because of the game itself, a bit like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all those games where the trophies aren't necessarily any harder than just playing the game through, but the difficult thing is getting to the end and maybe playing on the hardest difficulty and beating the hard bosses and stuff. 3-on-3's got another list. I mean, that's been out for a while. I don't think even all the game modes are released for that yet. It's in some kind of beta series, or it's in some kind of like beta period or something. I'm not really sure. It looked easy when we first looked, but yeah, I'm not so sure now. Forma 8. This was, we'll check out a trailer for it. I've got one open here. It doesn't look particularly fascinating. And I think this was one of those that had some music in that kind of made it seem more interesting than it was. This is the thing about trailers, right? Obviously, I'm not sharing music or sound with you during these shows, and sometimes that's quite helpful. Watching a trailer without the sound can be beneficial in the sense that, some trailers have such awesome music, it makes the game seem a lot cooler than it is. But then if you watch it with the sound off and you're just literally watching the gameplay, which is what you're going to be seeing if you play the game yourself. I thought that was the end for a minute. If you watch it without the sound, it kind of opens your eyes to what the game's actually about, or, it stops you from being influenced by, a music track that you might love, or just epic sound effects. And it can, have quite a different tone. So I'm a bit distracted by just checking this out, because I have watched this, but it was a few days ago, and I'm trying to remember if there was anything interesting about it, to be honest. I mean, it's basically, another 2D kind of dark, one of those sort of limbo style games, but not a platformer, obviously. You're flying around. There's something a little bit pixel junk about it. I don't think it's a pixel junk game, but it looks kind of boring if you ask me, to be honest. And in fact, I'm actually kind of getting a bit bored of this trailer. I'm waiting for something to happen that sets it apart, With most games, especially indie games, you watch them and they might start off just being a platformer or like a flying type game like this, and you think, right, there's obviously going to be some sort of novelty about it, some sort of feature that's unique to this game. But sometimes you get a game that comes out and doesn't have anything, it doesn't have any addition that sets it apart from other games of a similar type. And it seems to be that this is going to be one of them. Yeah. But it could be good. Sometimes those games that don't necessarily stand out end up being good just because they're designed well and the level design is good and everything. So who knows? But there's not really a lot to go on there. It did look a bit slow moving for me, to be honest. How to Survive 2. This is a sequel, obviously, to the first one. Now, I've got the trophy guide open for the first one, which didn't have a platinum, and it took 10 to 20 hours. The average difficulty voting thread, I think... No, not that one. I think it gave it like a 4 or 5. Let's just take a quick look here. Most people gave it a 4, but a couple 5 and 6. So it probably averages out around a 5. That's not to say that the second game is going to be of a similar difficulty. It's worth checking out a trailer of this one, though. Now, we've got 3 trailers here. One of them's a bit shorter. Let's check out the PlayStation one, seeing as that's where we'll be playing it. This reminds me of State of Decay. Now, State of Decay is a Xbox-only series. I think there's a sequel coming out, because there's only been one. There was one on 360. I think they did like a remaster of sorts for the Xbox One. And there's another one coming out soon, supposedly, although there's not been a lot of information on it. And it reminds me a lot of this, because this is very much a survival game. It looks, I don't know, it looks kind of not clunky, but it's not sort of a massively high budget game from the looks of it. But sometimes those titles are more fun. Games where it's not about reaction speeds and hand-to-eye coordination, but it's more about decision making and making the right choices, taking the right steps in the game. I'm not talking about like dialogue choice and stuff, but I'm talking about being more deliberate with your actions, with your shots, and with your combat and everything. But that looks kind of cool. I think you're playing 4-player there. I wasn't really paying attention to the trailer as much as I should have done, but I think it mentioned 4-player co-op. Again, there's not really a lot to go on here. I mean, we could look through all these trophies, but without any context and without any feedback, we're not going to get very far when it comes to difficulty or time requirement or anything like that. Ghostblade here. I think this is one of those games that will appeal to certain people. I don't think I've watched this trailer yet, but it looks to be maybe... Yeah, a flight... Yeah, okay. So it's going to be one of those bullet hell shooters, shmups as they call them. Highly detailed HD visuals. I'm guessing this is a remake. I was never... The only old school game of this type that I played back in the day was Xenon 2 on the Sega Master System 2. And it was fun. It was very similar to this. In fact, I think they even did a Arcade Archives re-release of the first Xenon, and it really brought back memories. But as you can see, it's all about like being very precise with your movements. These types of games don't appeal to everyone, and they can be quite tricky, but a lot of people do absolutely love them, and they're the kind of games that for instance, the Game Scoop guys on IGN will do Let's Plays of this type of stuff because they don't get a lot of notice, obviously, and they want to kind of bring these games to their attention. But like I say, it does have a platinum, but I'm guessing it could well be very difficult. Although not all bullet hell games are tough. There was one actually that, what was it called? Under Defeat HD edition or whatever on PS3. That has a stacking list actually, the normal version from the rest of the world and then the Japanese version. I think it's a Japanese game, and that was very similar to this, a lot of bullets flying around and stuff. But that was actually quite an easy platinum. So it's not a foregone conclusion that it's going to be tough. We'll soon find out though. Warhammer 40,000 Death Watch. Obviously some people are really into Warhammer. I watched the trailer for this. We're not going to watch it because it's so boring, to be honest. I kind of enjoyed Space Marine, but this is a turn-based strategy game, very similar to XCOM. But from what I saw, literally every clip was just the same thing. It was just one of the Marines shooting at an alien or whatever they are, or an orc, and it looked very basic. It didn't really show off much depth, so I'm not really particularly interested in that unless, it might be interesting to look at the reviews actually, because, it might be one of those games that is better than it looks to be, when you watch a trailer. Looking here, okay, maybe it's better than it looks, unless this is an expansion. Oh, this is the iOS version. I wonder if maybe it got a higher score because it's particularly good graphics for an iOS game or something. But I suppose it's on PC as well. I wonder if it's got a different score on PC. Oh yeah, so there you go. You have got a lower score on PC, but it's still pretty good. Maybe it's better than it looks. Maybe check it out if you're into Warhammer. I know some people sort of collect all the figures and play the board games in real life and everything, so it might be right up your street. To Who Double Focus. I've forgotten what that was already, but we're not going to look at it. Oh, that was a 2D platformer, like a really weird looking platformer where you play as a bunch of different, like, typical Japanese girls, and yeah, it looks crazy. It might be easy, but we'll come back and check that out when people have played it. Kitty Powers Matchmaker. Now, Jacksepticeye, who is one of the bigger YouTubers on YouTube, he's done a Let's Play of this, which is quite funny. And it just looks ridiculous. I'm not actually going to show you the trailer because it's a matchmaking game and it's probably going to make you throw up with all the pink and everything that's flying around. But it could well be, if you can brave it, if you can sit through this garbage, this, just pointless mess, then it might well be an easy platinum, because I'm guessing you're literally making choices, you're, I guess, I didn't even watch the whole trailer, but you're talking to people and trying to match people up, basically. So, there's probably not any level of difficulty here unless there's some kind of mini game, but I can see this being a super easy plat that no one wants to play. Up there with Hannah Montana, one of those types of platinums for PS4. Yeah, that's basically all the games we were going to cover today, guys. So I promise you I would just mention something I was planning for Patreon. Now, you may have noticed I've been taking some steps recently to try and lean more towards the YouTube channel rather than my work. I've brought in some help so that it alleviates some of the pressure, because I was working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, though, I'm going to be able to just kind of run the business in the background and hopefully dedicate more time to YouTube. Now, one thing that will really help me to be able to do that is, some support on Patreon, maybe. I've been on Patreon for a while, but I haven't given anyone any reason to support me. There are a few of you who do, and I wish I had your names in front of me. Maybe when I do the actual Patreon video announcing the official rewards when I set them up, I will do a thank you to each of you individually, because there's 3 or 4 of you who have been supporting me over the last few months for a few bucks a month. But like I say, obviously there needs to be a reason for you to subscribe. I know a lot of you are really supportive of the channel, and some of you would love to be able to support me just to help the channel keep going and to help it grow so that you benefit from more content and better content. But it's nice if I can, add some actual tangible rewards for you guys. So I'd love to hear your opinion on some ideas I've been having. Now, I'm thinking of maybe having like a $1 tier, which is enough to get you access to the Patreon feed, which will, I will start updating, and basically anything that I find out during the week that I feel is interesting, the kind of stuff that I talk about during this weekly show, I'll post all that stuff on Patreon so that you guys, if you're subscribed even for just $1 a month, which works out as about 80 pence, you'll have access to that, and you'll be able to like get involved and see some of those updates before, having to wait until the end of the week to watch the actual show itself. But then the first sort of proper tier will be, I'm thinking probably $5. Now that's about £4. And I have 3 ideas for rewards for this tier. Now, for those of you who don't know how Patreon works, basically it's a way that subscribers to a YouTube channel or followers of someone's art or music or whatever, they can help support that person by giving a regular monthly amount, no matter how small. It has to be like $1 or higher, but it can be any amount you want. And the Patreon, the person who's on Patreon, the creator, they call them, he can set up rewards for different tiers. So depending on how much you donate each month, you get access to certain rewards. Now, my idea for the $5 one is threefold, like I mentioned. And rather than just choosing one of these, I'm thinking of having all 3 of these as rewards for everyone who subscribes for $5 or more. Now, the first one would be a one-off reward, which is why I've added the other 2 as well, because it wouldn't make sense just to have a reward that you get once and then kind of move on, because it wouldn't be worth keeping your subscription going. But the first one relates to the Subscribers Trophy Collection review series, which we started a few months ago. Now, several months ago, when we started it, I had about 30 people ask me to review their account. That was back when I had about 2,000 subs. So you can imagine now, if I was to do another video and I was to start the series up and it was to become a regular feature, I would probably have hundreds of people asking me over time. Now, even if I did one of those videos every week, which isn't really realistic, at a push, I could probably do one every fortnight. So once every 2 weeks, there's 52 weeks in a year, that would be 26 a year. Now, I've already got over 26 people who want a review. So that would literally take me a year to do the ones that I have listed currently. But every time I do an episode, I'd probably have a whole load of new people ask me to do one as well. And that would mean that the majority of them would never be reached. I'd never get to them because it would just be impossible unless I was doing like a review every single day. So I've been thinking of linking it with a Patreon reward so that it gives you guys the chance to be able to sort of push yourself to the top of the list. Now, I would still keep the list of everyone who's asked for a review. I'd still keep that intact, and they would be there for me to do reviews for, once I've gone through all the Patreon subscribers, I would carry on with the list that's already there. But to give people the opportunity to get theirs done a bit sooner and to make sure that they do actually get a review rather than maybe never actually reaching it. For those who really care about it, they'll be able to subscribe for $5 a month or more. And the more you subscribe for, the further up the list you'll go. But it will basically be in like first come, first served order. So the first person to sub on Patreon will be at the top of the list. They'll be the next review. And then each one will be added below them. And it would work like that. Now, I really don't want you guys to think that I'm kind of, this kind of sounds negative, like I'm only doing this for people who pay me money, like you have to pay me to do a review for your account. But really, the only reason I'm doing this is out of necessity. And that's why I'm asking for your feedback, because I want to hear if you think it's reasonable. Really, at the end of the day, I would never be able to cover everyone's review. So this is just a way of me giving you the chance to, guarantee yourself a review if it does really matter to you. But really, that's not going to be the main reason that people will subscribe for that level. And a lot of people who do sub for that level will probably not want a review. They'll probably subscribe for the other rewards. And they, probably will say, don't worry about the review. It might not be something they want done. So we'll see how it plays out. But the other 2, I'm thinking, one, I would like to give you guys, if you subscribe, I'd like to open up the opportunity to vote on polls that I'll be opening on Patreon once I've figured out how to do that. And basically, I'll give you guys pretty much direct control over what content I put up. So every time I, for instance, do a guide for a game, I'll put up a poll asking you what guide you'd like me to do next. And obviously, I'll give you some choices rather than just leaving it open, because I'm not able to do a guide for every game, of course. But I'll give you some choices, maybe 5 or 6, and say, right, which one would you prefer? And whichever one you guys choose, that will be the next one I do. And I'll do that with several pieces of content. So, for instance, with the How to Be a Trophy Hunter series, after I've done the first 2 or 3 episodes that I'm definitely planning, or maybe 3 or 4, after that, I'll kind of give you guys some options. I'll say, right, what would you like me to talk about next? And you can choose through a voting system. Of course, if the thing you vote for isn't chosen, whatever is chosen will be dropped off the list next time because it's already been covered. So whatever you were wanting has got a better chance of being chosen the next time around. So it won't kind of alienate anyone. It will just be like a majority vote, and we'll slowly cycle through all that content, adding stuff as we go along. For instance, I'll also do it with the top 10 series, or the trophy countdowns that I put up. I'll give you guys the opportunity to choose what you'd like me to cover next. So I think that will be a really nice way of you being able to be hands-on with the channel and have a direct influence on what content I make. And I might even give you the opportunity to choose literally what video I put up next. For instance, I'll say, right, this week, would you rather a How to Be a Trophy Hunter episode, a top 10, a guide, or, whatever the case may be. I'll give you the chance to pick and choose. And I'll also be willing to take suggestions, through the Patreon page. I will be open to your guys giving over suggestions, and I'll, try and add those suggestions. If it's something I can do, I'll add those suggestions to the next poll, the next voting, period. And you guys will be able to include that in the vote. So I think that'll be a nice addition, but I'd love to hear your feedback and your opinions on it. Now, the final reward I was considering as a possibility, is the fact, I know that some of you, you like to download this particular show and listen to it as like an MP3 or whatever, listen to it maybe on the train or the bus or something. Now, what I could do is to save you the hassle of trying to actually download the YouTube video itself, I might be able to start kind of recording it as an MP3 as well as a video, and uploading that to Patreon for all my $5 and higher subscribers. So with that working out as like £4 a month, you'd be getting the other rewards as well. You'd be getting more involved in the channel, but you'd also be getting a MP3 that you can just download directly from there onto your phone or whatever. You'd be getting it early because it would probably, I'd process the MP3 first and I'd upload that, and then I'd start processing the video itself, and then that has to upload to YouTube, which takes a while. So I'd probably start sort of timing it so that the MP3 was up on Sunday and then the video itself was up on Monday evening, so that people coming back from work can catch it, watch the video in their free time and stuff. And so you'd get early access to the show, but you'd also get a nice, easy, convenient MP3 to download, and that would be like £1 a week, basically, just to save you that hassle of actually downloading the show yourself. So let me know, guys, what you think about all these ideas that I've had. There's actually one more tier I'm considering, which will only apply to some of you. I'm thinking about doing a slightly more expensive tier for other YouTubers. And basically, what I would do is cycle through promoting your channels. I would have all of your channels linked to mine through the featured channel section on my main channel page. So when people look at my page, they'd see links to your channels as well. But at the same time, what I'm thinking of doing is at the end of this weekly show, because most of you that watch this show aren't necessarily new viewers, you're people that follow me anyway, and this is kind of a bit of a niche show that not everyone knows about, but it's not the kind of thing that people search YouTube for, right? So I don't get a lot of new viewers on it. And if they are new viewers, they've probably found me via another video. So what I'd be willing to do is, rather than putting my own subscribe button at the end of the video and some of my other videos for you guys to check out, because most of you already are subscribed and you already know what content I've got, I could start putting up one of your channel's subscribe buttons and like 3 videos of your choice, giving you some promotion basically for your channel. So if you're seriously wanting to grow your YouTube channel, it might be a great way of reaching a few thousand more people. And the best thing about this would be that it would be, a reward that would become more and more valuable to you over time, because as I receive more subscribers, and as you know, the channel's growing quite quickly, every single time it comes round to your turn to be featured, there'll be new subscribers. So it won't be a case of, it's just being shown to the same people. I'm earning probably around 3,000 new subscribers every month at the moment, or 2 to 3,000. And that means every time, let's say there was 4 people subscribed on this level that want their YouTube channel promoted. That means every month you would be featured once at the end of this weekly show. And so there'd be another few thousand people that could potentially stumble across your channel. And I literally wouldn't promote my channel at all during the end screen. The new feature, you probably noticed it at the end of some videos, you get the subscribe button, some videos, that's called the end screen. It's a new thing that YouTube are trying, and it works quite well. So literally, once you finish a video, some people are like, right, what do I watch next? And they're quite likely to click on one of those featured videos. So if you're running a channel that could appeal to you, I was thinking of making it like something like $20 a month. Now, that's not because I'm trying to make it expensive for you guys. That's because I wouldn't want to make it cheap enough that loads of people wanted to sub for that amount, because then it would kind of diminish the value for you guys. If I had like 20 people subscribed for $20 a month, then all of those people need to have their turn, having their channel featured. So, it could be a case of me featuring 2 channels at the end, possibly, I don't know if that's possible. But like I say, if it's a slightly more expensive, it actually benefits you because you're paying a little bit more, but you would have quite a regular, chance to have your channel featured. Anyway, it's just some thoughts I've been having. Sorry, I'm starting to ramble on now. And I am getting repetitive. I tried to this video, I've tried to be a bit more prepared, and hopefully it's come across as a little less repetitive than usual. I've tried not to repeat myself too much until right at the end, because I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to explain those Patreon ideas I had. So I apologize if I was a bit, if I was repeating myself a bit there. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course, and hopefully I'll be back up and swinging, with lots of decent content over the next couple of weeks. So keep your eye open and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again, guys. I'll catch you very soon.